Welcome to Sovereign Mamas, the podcast sanctuary for visionary women who are building lives, businesses, and legacies in alignment with their feminine power. I'm your host, Julia Jörg, intuitive business coach, mama of two, and systems strategist for solo-led entrepreneurs. Here, we honor both your sacred role as a mama and your wild vision as a changemaker. Expect soul-aligned strategy, raw storytelling, behind the scenes, and powerful conversations that support you in scaling your business without sacrifice. If you're done choosing between success and sovereignty, you're home. Let's begin. Welcome to another episode on the Sovereign Mamas podcast. This is your time to tune in and enjoy really unique stories and inspiring women here on this podcast. We talk all things motherhood, business, spirituality, and the untold truths. And today I am here with Debbi Sluys, and I'm very curious, Debbi. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's so great to have you because it's such a unique angle you take in business. You have a fantastic experience that you can share a little bit about. The other day you met someone really special, and I don't even know where to start, where we start. Maybe, yeah, let's fill the audience in what you do and who you met the other day.
So do you mean Jack Canfield? Is
I
that who you're
do.
talking
I
about?
do.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's been a really big influence in my life. So I met him online, so to speak, where, when you watch lots of YouTube videos, you just feel like you know someone after a while.
Mhm.
I really just binged watched his YouTube videos initially in 2017. And it was because I was introduced to this idea of vision boarding. It came across my news feed. I didn't really know what that was. I had never created one before that. And so, listening to him talk about his book, The Success Principles and the personal development, I had already been introduced to people like Simon Sinek,
Mhm.
who, the TED Talk is People Don't Buy What You Do, Why You Do It, and Brené Brown around Dare to Lead and the Power of Vulnerability, and then a little bit of Tony Robbins thrown in there as well. But that was really my first introduction, and then Jack came along with this idea, what I just thought was a vision board. So, yes, last week I was in LA and it was his final live conference.
Mhm.
And I actually went to one of his my very first live personal development experiences was back in 2018. So after I found him online, then I started to create a business around vision boards, and I created my curriculum based on his success principles, and then also combined with what I knew around children, because I spent 30 years in childcare. I was a director of a multi-site not-for-profit organization. And so love the idea of play, which is what attracted me to vision boards. They're so playful and fun. And then I realized, like, if I'm going to really go all out, I want to go see the man himself. And so I went to Boston. I'm in Ontario, Canada, and I flew to Boston and listened to him, and really it was cemented that day, like, wow, he is who he says he is. I really enjoy his teaching. And I wrote in my workbook that day, and I received one last week too. I bet you it's almost the same. But I wrote in my workbook that day my goals. And one of my goals was I will do a big training with Jack Canfield. I wrote that back in 2018. And you got goosebumps because if you're watching my social media, you'll know that I was on stage last Saturday or Friday night. I was last Friday night, in that they hosted a vision board experience and they called me up to share what I offer as my methodology and framework and some tips around creating a vision board that will manifest quickly. And so I was able to do that. And so I would say that qualifies, and that was a huge manifestation.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, congratulations. And that is really, yeah, it's special. And then for you, it might not be so special anymore because you have, I mean, this is a big manifestation, but since you are in this mindset and you do this, I'm sure it's become a bit more normal to manifest things. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. It's interesting. I was actually giving a training today and talking about that. And um, so my husband, he's been watching everything that I've been doing. He's not in the same business as me, but he's certainly been learning and watching what I've been offering. And we were in the Dominican on vacation earlier this year, and he said, Deb, he said, I don't really understand what the big deal is around manifestation because it's just living. And I said, it is just living. You're absolutely right, because we're manifesting all the time.
Mhm.
But when you get clear on what it is that you really want, that's when the magic happens, when you start to manifest what it is that you desire. Because we're manifesting. Like, if you don't like your results, you need to change your habits and your actions and your visions and your goals, because that's what's creating the results that you have. So you absolutely can manifest, but you're right. When I look and every time I've leveled up, it feels normal because it's like, when you exercise
Mhm.
and you work out, eventually you're going to be growing muscle and you're going to be releasing weight. And you don't one day and go, oh my goodness, like, look at me, right? Maybe, but, and especially if you maybe try on something for the first time and it fits, and then you have that surprise. But for the most part, you just kind of grow into that new body that you've created by working out, by doing the work. And that's the same thing with manifestation. When you're doing this work, you're leveling up, and it comes in more like a whisper versus like a trumpet, that it's not like it's just being announced like a parade, but rather that it just becomes your new normal.
I love that. And I think one of my biggest breakthroughs was not only that you are manifesting the things that you want, but also the ones that you don't want. And you just touched on that, right? And when that was one big one that I had to swallow, because I was always um, thinking that, it's happening to me. And once I got that in place in my mind, and said, oh no, I'm attracting everything. And so that is my responsibility too. Now let's change that narrative in my head. And it's so much more fun to obviously focus on the good things. And that's why you create that process with a vision board, right? To focus your energy on what you want, and then so much more good things come into your life.
For
So,
sure. Like,
mhm,
it's a mind thing, right? It's a reticular activation system
mhm,
where we activate that within our brain, that when we start putting those things in that we want, we
mhm,
activate that part of our brain, and it starts to filter out we get millions pieces of information all the time, whether it be from advertisements, along the road, billboards or magazines or TV and radio. Like, we're constantly being bombarded with noise and with images. And so your brain, the reticular activation system, starts to filter that and says, oh no, we're just looking for
mhm,
this new opportunity to advance in this work. We're looking for clients. We're looking for a love of your life. We're looking for, new friendships. And so that's where your brain starts to filter out all the other noise, so to speak, and focus in. So people think like law of attraction means it has to come to you, but it's
mhm,
actually already there. It's just filtering out so that you can see between all the noise and the clutter what actually is already there. And then the other piece is you have to ask for it. So
mhm.
it's not like your manifestation will come necessarily, usually doesn't just knock on your door and go, hello, are you looking for the love of your life? Right? Like, you have to take a risk, and you have to sacrifice, which means sacrificing old ways of being, and to step into this new way of being and ask for what it is that you want. So I talk about ask, believe, and receive, that those are really the key pieces of manifestation.
And you just recently, I saw on your Facebook that you're hosting a free masterclass to how to attract money. So let's talk about that. What does it actually need when you have financial goals? Is there or in general, is there any difference if I want to attract the man, the money, or the body, like the sexy new body for the summer?
Well, so money is a tricky one because so many people have hangups and limiting beliefs. I've met very few people who actually have it all straight. The one person that I really would recommend that you go listen to his book or listen, he's actually been on my podcast, is Ken Honda. He wrote
Oh,
the
yeah.
book Happy Money. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He talks about money, thinking about money like air, meaning that we don't think about it at all. We do, even though we need air to survive, it's so important. We never think about it. And he said, as soon as you begin to think about it in that way, like I need more, you're actually focusing on the lack thereof. And the
Yeah.
same thing, he talks about applying that to happiness. If you're saying, I need more happiness, it means that you are recognizing, acknowledging, focusing on the fact that you're unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting idea that where we get to focus, and this is where a vision board is, it's beyond the what, or it's beyond the how. It's the what and the where. So it's like, because what we want to do is we want to raise our vibration. We want to increase the frequency within our energy. And so we do that when we imagine with images this beautiful life that we get to live. And so it's not about things. So you talked about money, relationships, and health, but all of those can be put on a vision board and they're all connected. So sometimes people make vision boards and they're siloed, like they'll make a business vision board or a love interest vision board. But I actually discourage that because we are a whole person and that we have all of those different interests in our life. And so it's this best version of myself. Who do I want to be? Now, I call my best version of myself my $1 million Deb. And my million dollar Deb, I think about all the things that she does throughout the day. Like, what does $1 million Deb eat? What does $1 million Deb speak about?
Mm-hmm.
What friends does she associate with? What clients does she attract? How does she spend her time, her free time? How does she entertain herself? What kind of relationship does she have? So when it's all around that self-image, then those other images that are on your board just simply represent that. And that can include the freedom of time, freedom of money, the healthy version of me. Do you see how that encompasses all of that?
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you say that. We had a talk 2 weeks ago, was it? Our connection call. And for the longest, I'm not gonna lie, I said I want to update my vision board from last year because last year I created it. Oh, hang on, no. So we're in 2025, and I created one at the end of 2023. And within 2 weeks, I manifested the beach house that I put on that board. And then for the longest, I let that vision board be my desktop, the screensaver on my laptop, because there were still things on it that I hadn't manifested. And I looked at them and I noticed how then suddenly, this was amazing. I have the beach house, and there were a couple of other things that I manifested on there. But then the other things that I didn't achieve or haven't achieved suddenly got a weird feeling. And I didn't like to look at it anymore. And because I also had this personally, like I had an agenda and I set it there and I said, by that date, I would like to have that. And it didn't happen. And so after we spoke, I said, okay, come on, it's time. It's really time to update your vision board. And what I did was exactly what you just said. I didn't put things on there in necessarily I actually in the middle it says becoming me. And all the images around the circle, I actually put things on how I want to feel, like what I want to, like who I want to be with, how, the feelings and situations. Um, yeah, there's also food, and then because I'm in Bali and I know I'm gonna host a retreat here, so there's the retreat and stuff like that. But it was a way different approach than last time when I created that. And we haven't even tapped into this. This is so interesting.
Well, most people like it's not wrong to put things specific on there, like your beach house. I think that's wonderful and amazing. Um, but I will caution that you don't want to treat it as a goal board.
Hmm.
So there's a distinction between vision and goals. And now your beach house sounds like it was a really big stretch for you. So it doesn't sound more like a goal. It does sound like a vision. But sometimes people will put things on their board where it's like you said, it's by this date, I want this thing.
Hmm.
And and they actually know the how. It just okay, so if I put this money down, a vision is bigger than that. So it's more about that lifestyle. But the beach house can represent it. So I'm kind of talking out both sides of my mouth, but I hope you understand what I'm saying is that, and that's why it's so individual for each person. Like I'll give you an example. I had a woman come to a retreat that I was hosting, and she was surrounded by magazines. She was sitting on the floor. Like we had like this area rug that was super comfy, and we put the magazines down there. That was before I had my own magazine. So I had brought all these magazines, and she's sifting through them. And also just everybody's quiet looking through images. And she pops her head up and she says, Deb, I have a story within me that must come out. And I said, oh, well, it sounds like you want to write a book. She's like, yes, I need to write a book. I'm like, well, that needs to go on your vision board. And, simply the act of writing a book got to go on her vision board. Now, and by the way, she wrote two books. She ends up writing two books and bestsellers. She's left her 9 to 5 in a very stressful, working, with like children's aid, like apprehension of children. And now she's a hypnosis, does hypnosis and coaching, and has her own studio and everything. Yeah. So just amazing transformation. But I worked with another gentleman who was actually my coach. So he said, went through his program, graduated, and he said, I would love to have a vision board. And so, I mean, he was much further ahead than I was in my business. Like he had this successful coaching business that was global. And so so then it was reversed. It was an interesting dynamic where I now am coaching my coach. And he said, well, I got to put my book on the board. And I said, so I challenged him and I said, do you know how to write a book? He said, yes. And I said, do you know who's going to write it with you and for you? Yes. Do you know how it's going to get published? Yes. And I said, then your book does not go on your vision board. And
Yeah.
so, you can see the difference, the energy in that. So I said, let's go further than that. So how is your book going to change the world? Because I suspect that you're writing this book so that you can impact millions. And he said, yes. And I said, that's what goes on your board. Maybe it's you up on stage with the books for sale at the back of the room. Maybe it's at a book signing in a really established bookstore, really high end. So all of a sudden he got it. Like, he's like, yes, like he's not dreaming big enough.
That makes so much sense because the beach house wasn't about money or, finding it was actually on that island in Koh Samui in Thailand where I just had moved there from an island where beachfront living was easy because there was plenty of opportunities. But on that new island on Koh Samui, all the friends that I had there or people that I met, they said, on Koh Samui, you just won't find a house. You won't find a house for yourself because there's 5-star hotels that block the beachfronts. There's like these Airbnb houses, and they won't rent it out or sell it to you if you want to live there as a family house thing. And I was so convinced that that's not true. I said, that cannot be. I am going to live beachfront in Koh Samui because I feel it can be possible. So that was the thing. And then it happened. So it was like, yeah, so it makes so much sense that you say that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay. Okay. And so coming back to your masterclass now, so is that then, do you have any money specific manifestation stories, either like from your own or clients, where then the vision board played a key role?
For sure. I'm trying to think of the exact amount. But I've had many where people have had a desire for as see, it's not so much the because I don't encourage people to put money on their board because money
Mhm.
is a how, but wanting to have certain things, like somebody wanted to renovate their whole backyard. Um, Someone wanted to purchase a home. Um, and the money just came. Like they said, like,
Okay.
somebody decided that they didn't want to wait till they passed away and they wanted to give me the inheritance early. And they literally knocked on my door and said, here's a check. Like, I want to see you enjoy it. Right. Like things like that. Like it just completely, feels like out of the blue. And they write me a letter and they're like, Deb, you're not going to believe this. And I'm like, actually, I do. It's amazing. But that's how it manifests. So, yes. So I do encourage people to write a check uh to themselves from the universe, but to put on the back of the board and also to have it fund the front of the board.
Mhm.
So don't take up real estate on your main vision board with the check, but know that it's there and that it's funding the front of it. So but yeah, I've had it myself as well, where um I wanted to hire a really big name celebrity speaker. And, it was like gulp. Even the deposit, I was like, this feels really big. And I went to different places, and all of a sudden, yes, I had the money. And so every time it happens, I teach this stuff. And yet every time it happens, it still gives me the tingles. Like I still get the goosebumps and I'm in awe. I'm just in awe. And I'm like, there it is. Yep. It worked again.
Wow. That's, yeah, cool. So cool. And when you think back, let's switch over now to you being a mom. Yeah. And do you also like implement that as I don't know, sometimes we know you want your children see things when they're young and you say, "Oh, I have this amazing tool. This will serve you." Do you do this with your children?
So my children are all adults now, but I have grandchildren. And
Ah.
so, yeah, so, and I didn't get into this work until I was in my late 40s. So my children were adults. However, one of the most rewarding things was to do the vision board. I have identical twin daughters, and they're adults, and I had them come to my studio. So I used to have a in-person studio where it was specifically designed for vision boarding, and it
Mhm.
was beautiful, feminine. Oh, such a beautiful, safe space. But I called it the light up studio because you felt lighter after you left. Like it was just gorgeous. And so I had them come and do vision boards. And then I also had, I offered a couples vision board experience, and my daughter and her husband, my son-in-law, came. He got right into it and they made one board together. So it's been very rewarding to have my family uh, do their vision board. And um, so I can share this story too. My one daughter had a son, my grandson, and he's 5. And then they're identical twins. So people would say, "Oh, are you having a baby soon?" And it would be really hard because they were trying to conceive and were struggling. And so she had put a baby on her vision board. And she now has a 3-year-old. So yeah, and so it's remarkable how this works. And
Mhm.
she had it on her vision board. Um and what was really fun was my one daughter now works for me as well. But my daughter had made her new vision board, and my grandson, would have been 4 at the time, saw it, and he said, "Jam," he calls me Jammy, not grandma. Jammy, can I make a vision board?" I'm like, this is the best day of my life. I'm like, yes, you can. So I got out all the supplies, and mind you, it mostly looks like
Of
Mario Kart.
course.
But that's what's in his life right now, right? So I just leave it out every once in a while. He adds a few more images to it, but it just becomes part of your language.
Mhm.
And even my sons-in-law, they'll tease me a little bit, but in a way that they'll say, "Oh, Deb just manifested that." Like they know that, and the things that they see that I'm doing, the how I envision this business,
Mhm.
and how, I get to travel, I get to meet people like Jack Canfield and my mentors, and I'm here and there, and serving. And yeah, they talk about manifestation where that wasn't even part of the vocabulary a few years ago. And like I said, and my husband too, very supportive of this work. And yeah, so it's been a lot of fun to incorporate with my family.
Amazing. And what's your next big vision? Are you running out
My
of visions?
No, I'm not. I'm not at all. Actually, I just am going to be signing a contract with a lady to help me write my book. So I'm really excited to be writing my a book. I created a planner, a goal planner, and I have a magazine. But 2 years ago, actually, Jack Canfield, I was at a retreat, and he said, "Deb, you should write a book." And he said, "You're speaking, you're doing the workshops, you need a book." And I've been resisting it. There's some limiting beliefs there for me around my capability of writing. It
Mm,
goes back to grade school, some of the things that my teachers have said to me and so forth. And so it's time. And so I'm really excited to be writing this book. So I hope that it will, like I said, this is brand new, but we're just talking about this today. So I'm hoping that it'll launch by next spring in 2026. Really excited for that. It's going to be based in the work that I do, which will be really awesome. So that's a big vision. Another is, as I said, I'm working on a big women's conference to include a celebrity who is in this personal development work, which would be, so that's also for next year. That's really exciting. And I'm growing my academy. So I train
mm.
trainers to do what I do. And I have over 50 now from around the world, 5 different countries. And so my goal actually, I declared it at the conference last week was 1,000. So I want to have 1,000 people using my proven process and methodology in their business, offering vision and hope and joy to people in their business.
Yeah, and you will put Bali on your vision board as well, right? As
Oh yeah,
destination.
I would love that for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, for sure. Definitely, definitely up there. It just sounds so exotic and wonderful.
It is, and it's the perfect place to create those spaces for women, and it attracts the right people. It is really something you can do it anywhere, obviously, but when you are in that surrounding, it's just like it adds that extra layer of, yeah, um,
Yeah.
it is quite nice, yes. And when you think of like a last truth, not necessarily only around vision board, but in life in general. But because you have been doing this work so much and you have so much wisdom around motherhood, your work, your passions. Listeners here, they are in all different stages, but they are ambitious mothers, mompreneurs who are really living with those dreams and visions, that big visions in on their hearts and little humans on their hips. That's what I say always.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
what's one advice or tip that you would like them to hear today to keep going, basically?
I feel that. Well, I would say to follow your intuition.
Mm,
So, if you feel that maybe you've been a rule follower, like you toe the line, that whether that be the way that society says or religion says or but you've instinctively like you knew that house was yours, like it's going to
100%.
come. You just
Mm,
knew it. You knew it in your core. And so to believe in yourself, believe in the intuition, that intuitive thought, and then the second piece is to act on it. And even if it's like, if you're a mom, I know you only have snippets of a little bit of time, even if it's simply writing the idea down so it's not lost, and simply writing an idea down, that already makes it, the percentage for it to manifest, it goes up to 42% by just
mm,
getting it out of your head and writing it down. When you
yeah.
add images, it goes up to 65%. When you have accountability, like hiring a coach, getting into a mastermind, it goes up to 95%. But I know mom's times is so, it's broken up. It's like you can't say I just need 2 hours to myself. So finding those little bits of time, but taking trusting your intuition is really important. Surrounding yourself with other dreamers.
Mm,
So don't get sucked into, the drama, you know, the people that tend to complain and blame, even people, there's this, this movement of complaining about our husbands, right? Like we just, it kind of becomes a comedy routine, but that's not good for a marriage. It's just, if we can step out of that and find other things to entertain yourself, and
Mm.
also that there are other positive women who are up to big things, who want to make a difference. But also know that I'm giving you lots of advice, but this is all my
Yeah,
years of
go for it.
advice, is that to give yourself grace to know that, and everybody says it goes by so fast, but it truly does. And to know that there's seasons in your motherhood, seasons in your life, that this is your season right now, perhaps to have the babe on your hip, which means that you're not going to be able to be as much of an impact outside in your community. But that is your community right now, is your home. And you're building the best foundation is for your child. And so by being attentive to your child, by providing them what they need, like you are their world. And
Mm.
then there's going to be time for other impact and so forth later, but capture those moments for yourself, whether you journal and just write them in a little book for some time down the road. And it may be even that you go back to your journal 5 years later and go, oh my word, that actually is now my life, but simply by getting it and writing it down. So yeah, I just want to give all of you mamas a hug, because you're doing an amazing job.
Mm. That sounds fantastic. And yes, so many things that I deeply resonate. And it's the other day, someone on this podcast here said, you can give your child the biggest present by being present and really spending time with them. And like you say, it goes by so fast. And it doesn't mean though, and I've experienced this myself, that your own personal life stands still or has a backlash. It's just yes, in this different season and currently, and really yeah, really having that mantra, it's all temporary. That
Hmm.
in itself is so relaxing because oh, you're not going to be stuck with, dirty diapers and doing all the craziness in the first 2 years. It's just those first 2 years that you gracefully breathe through them, go through, and,
Yeah.
and then there's light at the end, right? And yes, so I feel if more women and especially more moms who are out of the thickest and really have made it to the side to the other side where life becomes normal again, where your children are understanding, where they're growing up, seeing you doing your thing, cheering you on, understand a happy mom is so much better than the one that sits there like clearly unsatisfied with herself because she's not chasing her vision. Like that's also a big one. My children's watch me do my things, right? And I'm I'm a stay-at-home mom, like because I'm running my business from home. Being a single mom, this makes it like I'm forced, but by choice to do it this way,
Hmm.
obviously, and I enjoy it so much because I have my pockets of time where I have just the business, like here right now. My kids are not around me, but they're here, right?
Yeah,
They're asleep, so I'm making it happen. And I
that's
feel
right.
when you have a vision and when you're so connected with your mission, then you can make it happen. And always coming back to it, there are days when you can't, and then you just focus on what you need to be focusing on and tending to, but then you just come back again. I think that's also a big one. Staying in connection with your goal. Like you already know you're gonna write that book because you always come back in those pockets of time that you dedicate to your book. Just a simple example, right? But that's the same with anything that you want to create.
For sure. And I would say too, like, whether you're a single parent or in a relationship, the best thing you can do for your family is to take care of yourself. But
Mm.
I would also say, like, learn more about yourself.
Mhm.
Like, so do the personal development work.
Mhm.
Read books that will support you to better understand how our brains work, how women, as we go through different phases, how hormones impact us, how we're not little men. We are women in that we respond to things differently. And even as women, we have different personalities and different ways of responding. So the better you can understand yourself and some of the maybe the beliefs that are informing your responses and your outcomes, then you can make choices around that so that you're not just running on autopilot, which is what I did for most of my 30s. I didn't even realize that I was simply existing. I was just waiting for the weekend. I was numbing with alcohol, thinking, I'll just get through this and then, I'll go back to work on Monday. And I didn't know there was anything different. So you're already ahead by listening to this podcast that you know that there may be something else out there for you, but it's up to you. And again, just when you can take those small pockets of time, it's about choosing instead of maybe watching Netflix. It's like reading a book on personal development from some of the people we talked about, Jamie Kern Lima, Mel Robbins, Gabby Bernstein. So those are some of the people that have influenced my life, Brené Brown, and learn
Mm.
more about yourself.
Yes, a big one was Esther Hicks. She really pulled me away from anything. Like I was like so sucked into that world then when I started listening to her. Um, and then making it, yeah, like you say, making it really a mission to dedicating your spare time to something that fills you up instead of consuming other things like, yeah, addictions and things that are actually distracting you and pushing you out of your way. And for that to happen, though, like I know so as a truth that if you do that or decide you want to be doing that, you also need to feel the feelings first. Like if you're sad or angry at the world, or if you like, and you just shove it down, like that's part of why people are numbing themselves with alcohol, with Netflix, and with the things because they're just like not allowing themselves to get it out and feel the things. And then, but that's the first step,
I
right?
agree. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And that's where a coach will support you to uncover what it is that um, you are perhaps pretending not to know
Mhm.
or hiding from yourself, from others, and to uncover that and to maybe pull the thread back to when did that first start? Oh, that's the little one right there who's scared because she was disciplined for this unfairly, or perhaps she was abused, or whatever the situation was, that she created a belief about herself, about the world, about money, whatever that belief is. And so when the more we can uncover those, I had an epiphany last week around around not being intelligent, and it had to do with and again that's been playing in the background, and unbeknownst to me, it stems back from when my father was, and I put this in quotation marks, helping me learn my multiplication tables. And it was like he recorded his voice on a tape, and he would say 2 times 2 is, and then he'd leave a little space and say 4. So I'd have to say it, but then I would get it right or wrong depending, because he would do the right answer. And so I did the whole multiplication tables. I'd have to listen to this tape. And so I felt this sense of anxiety that I wasn't going to be able to think fast enough, and then he would give the answer. And so I started to hate him. And also was just felt so defeated. And I was like, oh, and so can I find it in my heart to forgive him, to look at him as a father doing the best he could with what
Mhm.
he knew, and then to, console the little girl, to let her know that the little version of me is smart. She's doing the best that she can. She doesn't have to rush. If she takes her time to answer, if that's okay, like all the things. But when we start to uncover that, when I uncovered that about myself, then I can say, okay, so where else is this showing up? And how am I responding in defensiveness, in a way that I don't want to respond? I want to respond as an enlightened person, as a kind, generous, giving person, not as someone who's being defensive about my intellect. So, right. So the more that you can understand these things about ourselves, yeah, the more free we will be to be our fully authentic selves. And we're going to then, it's spread that to those around us. Sometimes we're like, oh, why doesn't our partner change? Well, we can't change anyone, but certainly if we're willing to do this work ourselves, I've heard this time and time again with couples, that the couple's having struggles, but when the one person decides they're not, they're going to try to work it out the best they can, but they start doing the work themselves, it actually moves into so much beauty within repairing the relationship. So that the other person then, it doesn't always happen this way, but I'm actually talking to a lot of couples where then the other partner finds that the walls are been taken down and that there's space for them to actually do their own work, and then they're able to repair it together.
Yes, powerful. Yes, absolutely. One last question, and then I let you go. What does like being a sovereign mama or sovereign woman entrepreneur mean to you in your words?
It means being authentic. And the name of my company is Dare to Declare. And it has been a name that has really matured, and like wine, when you open it and let it breathe. That's really what has happened over the last number of years, is that I really have honored and recognized this idea of daring, which is taking a risk, which feels risky and sometimes provocative, like I dare you. And so I love the idea of daring. I want to be daring, but I also want to declare, and declaring is declaring my truth. And so being bold in declaring my truth. And so as a mom, as a woman, that's what I would say.
Nice. Love it. I love these conversations. It feels just like this is the level of depth that I enjoy, and I notice so much for myself that I've done a lot of things that we touched on today. I am doing the work. I'm living and breathing that, and that's been for me, I think, the anchor in my life, and also for my business, really coming to myself and starting over here, rushing through the 30s, not knowing really what life means and what's the purpose of this all, until you suddenly wake up and say, hang on, there's more to life. And so I truly thank you for your wisdom, for your time. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of you on the internet and hopefully in person here in Bali. Hint, hint again.
I would love that.
And yes, to my listeners, thanks so much for carving out the time. I know you have a lot going on, and this is your time. So you did a great job today by listening to us, and get inspired and dare to do the things that you're meant to be doing here, right? Thank you, Debbi. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time.